Welcome back to Runecast, guys. Today we're going to talk about major variants. Gonna get some sage going, ring the bell. Okay, so why are major variants important? When you're casting runes with staves or tines or lots, as they're sometimes called, major variants often show up. And as a reader, you kind of have to know what they look like. So this book here, Rune Lore, is great for variants. In the back in the appendix tables, you can see major variant shapes of all the different runes. It's got these variants as well for the Anglo-Frisian Futhark. So there's a lot of different variants, and you kind of have to know your way around them to see what's happening in your reading. I will go over some of the more common ones. Again, when we're casting staves, you never know what you're going to get, right? I will put this off to the side and start showing you some of the major variants. One of the ones that comes most often when you're casting staves is Uruz. And I went over kind of it in my other video. Uruz will sometimes look like that, which it's different than its traditional form, which looks like this. You know, that's more like Uruz. But when you're casting tines, oftentimes it'll come down like that. That's a major variant. Fehu sometimes will look like this. Sometimes Fehu will, look like this. And then you can kind of see Ansuz is more coming back that way. One of the most trickiest ones is Pertho. Pertho will sometimes show up like this. Even though Pertho traditionally has two outgoing staves like this, you'll rarely see it like that in a reading. More often than not, it'll be sort of incomplete. It'll kind of look like this or this. When you're casting, it may even have this one kind of more up like that. It depends on the reading, right? So you as the diviner have to use your intuition as to what you see. And that's one of the most important things about casting staves like this is kind of knowing what to see when you look. When you cast them like that, this also comes up quite often as algaes. You can imagine these kind of crossing here and forming algaes. And then this one over here. Kind of get the three prongs going. Sometimes you'll see it like this. But a lot of times it won't form a perfect algaes like this. You'll see it like that or like that. And you just got to be aware and look out for it. Let's take a look at some of the other variants. Uruz, Pertho. Let's take a look at some of the other ones. Oh, Rydho is also one that comes and looks quite different. So Rydho, of course, is the R. So normally you would see it looking something like this, with maybe one coming off at the end. That might be Rydho. But, think of how these fall. I mean, sometimes they're a little bit incomplete. Sometimes this one is way out here. Is that Rydho? you got to kind of look into it. And then you also have to think about the querent and the query. All of that kind of is assimilated in your mind when you're thinking about casting staves and you're doing a reading. Isa is one that comes up a lot, of course, because it's just a single stave out by itself, floating in space. Is it really Isa? I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe just the significance of the rune itself, like this one is Dagas. So maybe it means that Dagas is out there. You have to decide as the diviner what it is. Is it really Isa? Is it the rune that is marked just out in space there? You have to make that call. What was I going to say about Manas? Manas is another one. Of course, Manas looks like this, right? That's a perfect Manas. But when you're casting staves, a lot of times it'll come up and look like this. Or sometimes this is Manas. When it's really far apart and you see that it's angling down, is that an incomplete Manas? Maybe there's another stave coming up over here. That's something that you have to decide. This is an alternate form of Manas, and we will... Oh no, this is an alternate form of Ehwas, and we'll take a look at that. Ehwas is the horse, and you can see Ehwas right here. That's Ehwas. Another tough one to form is Burkano or Birchta. Burkano in a perfect world would look something like this, right? That would be a perfect Burkano. But when you see it, when you cast it, it might look something like this. It might look something like this. I can see Burkano forming there, So you kind of have to look at it. Sometimes I will take a look at the staves and I will squint at them, and then the first rune I see when I'm squinting, it blurs my field of vision, and only the real runes will come out for me. Another big one is Nathiz versus Gibo. Okay, Gibo looks like this. It should be balanced. Nathiz looks like this. This one should be straight up, facing north. So when you're looking at a reading, sometimes Nathiz will look more like that. When you're looking at a reading to determine Nathiz from Gibo, you want to make sure, like, if it's more angling this way, it's probably trying to be Gibo. If it's more angling this way, it's probably trying to be Nathiz. Kinaz is another one that comes up a lot. So Kinaz, traditionally looks like this. But I have seen it come up in readings when it's more like this. Kinaz is another one. Gibo versus Nathiz, that's another tough one. So Burkano, we talked about Fehu, Uruz, Thurazaz usually ends up looking like this. Or sometimes it's a little off center. It's up top or down below. Usually that's how Thurazaz comes to look like. But as long as there's something coming down here and you have stuff at top and you have this point, the thorn in the middle, that's telling you that's Thurazaz trying to form right there. Othella is another one that's really hard to form, right? And when it does form, you have to understand, is it trying to be Ingaz, or is it trying to be Othella? So sometimes Othella will come like, it'll come like this, and then you'll have a separated like that. Sometimes Othello will look perfect for you. Other times it won't look so perfect. It'll be like this, and then it'll be like that. And you'll see that it's trying to make Othello. Ingwas is another one. Ingwas, or ing, is a perfect diamond, right? But also alternate forms of ingas or ingwas are like that's an alternate form of ingwas, with the two crosses coming below and above. That's an alternate form of ingwas. What's another alternate? Oh, suelu or sig. So suelu is traditionally, it looks like this, right? Like the S. But sometimes suelu will form like this. This will be angled, and this will be up here, and this will be more like that. Sometimes sig will form like that. Alternate forms of sig are also, more like this. You're trying to think, is that going to be hagalaz? Or is that trying to be sig? Well, hagalaz would be more like this. That would be a good hagalaz rune. But alternate forms of hagalaz will have two crossing it. That'll be hagalaz. Or sometimes this is another obscure alternate form, but it's kind of a beautiful one. When you see them like that, that can be hagalaz as well. Trying to think. Let's go over some of these forms. You can see hagalaz there with the double cross. Dagas is another one we'll go over in a minute. Where's the star version of hagalaz? Let's see if it's in this one. No, I don't see. There's a double cross and a line. That could be hagalaz. But yeah, you can see there's a lot of different alternate forms. And it's just what speaks to you in the moment as the reader, during the reading. There's the alternate form right there of hagalaz, the H rune. So, yeah, you can see there's a lot of different alternate forms. When you familiarize yourself, and the only way to really do it is to cast, to throw them down over and over again. See what you see. Like, what do I see in that one right there? This looks more like Nathiz, right? This could be Uruz. I see Uruz right there. I see Nathiz. Here's a double cross of hagalaz, possibly, right? This being the H, right? If this was a little bit further apart. It takes a lot of, Nerthus. It takes a lot of practice to kind of look at it. Oh, and that one rolled off. So what do we got there? We have Uruz, and then we have this. This is an alternate form of Kinas, but it's kind of reversed and pointing up. Is this really Isa? Maybe it is. Maybe it is trying to be Isa. But yes, just some alternate forms for when you're playing around with rune staves. Tiwas will also often come incomplete like that. You very rarely see a pronounced tiwas like that. We talked about algies. What are some of the other ones? Oh, dagas. Perfect dagas, of course, looks like, let's see, perfect dagas would look, well, if we're doing it perfectly, it would look like that, right? That would be a perfect dagas. But, in a reading, it might come out looking like this, and you're thinking, is that manas or dagas? Well, if it were manas, these would be down lower, right? That would be more traditional manas. You know, oftentimes manas will come out looking like this or like that. And you'll see, okay, that's trying to be manas right there. But for dagas, it'll be down in the middle of this formation where there's room up top here and at bottom there. That's really trying to be dagas. Okay, just food for thought tonight when you're thinking about maybe practicing throwing rune staves. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your experience is with casting the staves or lots or tines, sometimes they're called. Let me know what you think. All right. Thanks for watching.